pee all over this thing. Ugh. So. Crust.
Hey everyone, welcome to 3 Beers Deep for, I'm going to do this every time. See, today's February 7th, I'm recording this on my birthday. Sunday's February 8th, Monday's February 9th, so 3 Beers Deep for February 9th, 2015. Been doing this for a couple weeks now. I get really excited every week to sit down and answer your questions. You guys have been submitting some really cool stuff to my Tumblr account in the future. If you want to ask a question, you can email me at patrick.klepek@kotaku.com if you want to ask something a little deeper. A couple of people have sent those questions in. I unfortunately don't have time to address them today because it is my birthday as I'm recording this. I have things I need to do later today, but I wanted to cram this in to make sure I got it done this weekend and wasn't worrying about it on Sunday night. But your lengthier emails have been noted, and we will get to those in next week's show. But otherwise, if you go to patrickklepek.tumblr.com, you can submit questions. You don't have to register a Tumblr account. People have been pretty cool about not being jerks through the anonymous question thing. Curiously, that all stuff all seemed to die down when I wasn't working at Giant Bomb anymore. It seems like maybe some of the folks over there in that community that didn't particularly care for what I was doing suddenly don't care as much about what I'm doing now that I'm not showing up on that website. Although, if they were smart, they were downloading the Notepad Chrome extension and just having me removed from the website entirely. But that's neither here nor there. We are here to answer your amazing questions, the good people that are visiting me here on this YouTube channel and also on Twitch, where we just started playing Demon's Souls. The first video is in the channel. It's somewhere down there below my floating face right now. We played through about the first 90 minutes of Demon's Souls, and also the first 90 minutes of breaking in a brand new studio at Cards Against Humanity, in which we had tons of little glitches, many of which I already understand the solutions to, some of which I'm not sure I'll be able to address in the short term, but maybe we can come up with some stuff that makes it a little more palatable going forward. So appreciate all your patience in the stream while we were working that stuff out. I am no Vinny Caravella, and when I do things like that, I realize so quickly why you have talented folks like him helping you out. So let's move on to your questions. And I got coffee. I will be drinking beer later, so later in the day I will be 3 beers deep. I'm just not there right now. I got my X-Files mug. The truth is out there. I actually don't super prefer these like enormous mugs because it means I drink either too much coffee because I'm trying to finish it before it gets cold, or it gets cold. So much coffee gets cold so fast because there's so much in it, and then it distresses me. Anonymous asks, "Hey Patrick, hope all is well. All is great. My question is about DICE and the way EA is using them. With DICE basically updating Battlefield 4 most of last year, it seemed like it probably set them back on their other announced projects. EA has them presumably working on Star Wars Battlefront, Mirror's Edge, and Battlefield 5. Along with that, I'm sure that DICE needed to send out support teams to BioWare to make sure Dragon Age Inquisition actually runs on Frostbite. Is EA spreading DICE too thin?" It's hard to know before we actually see what projects come out of DICE. You have to imagine it's all hands on deck for Star Wars Battlefront, especially because it looks like that game is going to be timed to the release of Star Wars Episode 7, and Disney having handed over the keys to the kingdom for the video games of Star Wars to Electronic Arts, EA is going to probably not want to screw that up, whereas the Madden series has stagnated and kind of goes up and down in quality, and the NFL doesn't seem to be holding EA particularly accountable for that or have much interest in licensing that out elsewhere. One thinks that EA, maybe not on a short leash, but that they're going to want to come out with their best foot forward because Disney wants to make Star Wars a big phenomenon again. Not that Star Wars isn't kind of always constantly a phenomenon, but they want it to be something on the level of Marvel, how they are right now. And so, Star Wars Battlefront is a great way to kind of get in front of that, especially if I saw some kind of idle rumors that the Amy Hennig project that is coming from Visceral Games is, potentially Boba Fett related, and there's been rumors that the Gary Whitta / Garth Edwards film that's coming in 2016 is going to be Boba Fett related. We'll see. I don't know. But in any case, to your question about DICE, it's just really, really hard to know. I think if we see a quality drop off from DICE, then that's reason to be concerned. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen with Star Wars Battlefront because, like I said, this is going to be an all hands on deck. This game has got to be an incredible sort of situation. And, I mean, it's not hard to imagine how a current gen Star Wars game with coming from a studio like DICE, known for incredible visual fidelity, that they're going to do amazing things with that. And that's probably going to be that might be the first multiplayer game that I want to get involved in just because it's Star Wars and I'm getting giddy along with everyone else with the new film. Mirror's Edge is like the real question for me. I don't think the fact that Frostbite is being spread across most of Electronic Arts is a reason to be concerned. Support teams don't impact design teams, and I think the DICE has spent a couple of years coming to understand their own engine that they've built on their own. So I don't think them having to maybe go help out BioWare in order to get Dragon Age and Mass Effect up and running is necessarily a cause for concern. I think the real question for DICE isn't Mirror's Edge, isn't Star Wars Battlefront. It's Battlefield 6. It's the next major Battlefield game. They clearly screwed the pooch on the last Battlefield game. Battlefield 5, not Battlefield 6. And they've lost a ton of trust in their fans that they have had for well over a decade now, since Battlefield 1942. And they lost their trust. They did not earn the credibility that they had built up for so long, creating that franchise and having those fans stick around. And whether that was all on DICE, whether that was Electronic Arts pushing DICE to go too fast, too quickly, to get a game out for the holidays, to put it on too many platforms. There could have been all sorts of reasons, all sorts of blame to go around, but none of that really matters. The story of how Battlefield was screwed up is less important than the consequence of them screwing up, which is to say you cannot fully trust the next Battlefield game from DICE. And that is a profound statement. That is terrifyingly disappointing. That is DICE's bread and butter. That is what they are known for. Battlefield is DICE, no matter what else they work on. And so to have Battlefield lost, this sort of masterclass status amongst its fans and amongst communities in video games is something they're going to have to work really hard at earning back. And that you don't get that through free DLC. You don't get that through promotions. You get that through making a quality game that works, that runs, that respects the player's time and investment, and it works as advertised. Battlefield sort of kicked off the last year and a half or so of games just not fucking working when you buy them, and that has been a profound disappointment. So I think the real question about DICE, the heart of your question, is not something we can answer till the next major Battlefield game. Maiku Knight asks, hard to shorten my question. Listen to 90% of Dump Truck podcasts and have enjoyed, but there were a few I couldn't finish. It was because the interviewee didn't respond well to the questions asked, answering not listlessly, but rather dully. The majority of interviews like this come from normal gamers who aren't used to being prodded or speaking descriptively about what they enjoy. How do you attempt to open them up or skew your questions in a way to entice them to speak entertainingly? So there's a couple things there, right? So one, the interview Dump Truck is just a raw feed of the podcast I conducted while I was at Giant Bomb. And there's a difference between how someone acts on the radio and how they act when they're just being interviewed. The part of what I liked about the interview Dump Truck was that it wasn't a proper radio interview. It was, hey, let's just talk. I've got some questions. You've got something I want to hear about from you. Let's just have an exchange. And so they're not on, so to speak, right? I kind of always sound on because I'm kind of go into a certain mode when I'm in an interview mode or in a video mode, like whatever the case. Like I just have sort of a personality bit that kind of turns on, but that's not the case for everyone. But people can go into that mode a little bit when they know they're being interviewed in front of an audience, when they know that people are watching or listening. And the way I tried to set up the interview Dump Truck was that it's not that. It is just me and that person, and then people kind of get a chance to listen later. Often there are some interviews that didn't go up on the interview Dump Truck because when I would propose to folks, hey, I'd like to share this in the feed, and they go, oh man, I was coughing too much, or I'm not super happy with how I explained this or that, and so I'm not comfortable with that going into a podcast feed. And I would respect that. Didn't happen often. It was very, very rare. But I tried to capture the raw energy of a conversation, and sometimes that worked out, and it resulted in like really interesting things that I don't think you'd get in a circumstance where you're saying, hey, let's do a a proper interview, like, hey everyone, we're here with blah 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 blah, talking about blah 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 game. Like, let us, tell us, how did you get the idea for that game? Like, that's such a different experience, and the answers you get are going to be so different because they're skewed for someone expecting to be talking to an audience. And so I tried to avoid that. I tried to make the interview dump truck, for better or worse, sort of a raw experience. And sometimes that led to some dull sounding interviews that I was able to turn into interesting articles. But that was, sort of the principal vision behind that podcast was something like that. I do want to get something like that up and running. I'm not sure how I want to handle the podcast for the couple of things I do have. I'm thinking that rather than doing, for example, a 3 Beers Deep podcast that just has this raw audio, I would just maybe make it's sort of like a miscellaneous, right? Like this, I'm not intending for 3 Beers Deep to become this like major podcast thing. It's just sort of me answering your questions, and some folks would rather listen to that in an audio format. Maybe I could also put my future interviews with people that I'm for the stories I'm reporting for Kotaku into that same feed, rather than making 2 different feeds, which just that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I'm not sure what I'll call that quite yet. I need to figure that out pretty soon. I'd like to get that up and running on Monday so that people can listen to this episode and previous episodes in an audio format. And I don't really have any interviews ready to go for a sort of interview dump truck 2.0 or anything like that. But it's something I'll keep in mind for sure. Anonymous asks, is the lack of corporate oversight for YouTube personalities a net positive or negative for the games community? It grants greater freedom to experiment and allows for more unique voices to get out there, but it seems there's much less accountability for unethical or nasty behavior. After seeing some of the biggest personalities go on ugly rants against people and ideas that promote empathy and diversity, I worry it's for the worse, especially since their audiences tend to skew young. Well, I don't know if corporate oversight would be the solution to that quote-unquote problem. I think what you're looking at is a new set of voices, new platforms, new ways of reaching people that it's in its infancy. I mean, games writing, games criticism, games journalism, however you want to slice that apart, that is still incredibly young in and of itself. And then a tangent of that, or a new form of it, or perhaps the dominant form going forward, is what's happening in Twitch and YouTube, and this personality-focused sort of way of talking and presenting games and commenting on games. And that is all so new, and that's combined with the rise of social networks, of the fact that we are on and have a platform at all times, and people expect us to constantly be sharing our viewpoints. Like, we're in so many brand new roads that are being traveled all at once that I think it's hard to come down with a satisfying conclusion one way or the other, because we just need more time. And so, I certainly understand what you're alluding to, and the fact that maybe there are some dominant YouTube personalities that have perhaps in the past shared some uncomfortable opinions, and that's going to happen, right? Like, there are people that probably feel like I've shared some uncomfortable opinions that we tend to disagree on. But I think looking at the solution to corporate oversight or anything like that, I think is wrong. I'd rather there be more speech. I'd rather there be lots of speech that I disagree with, and the way that this evolves is through a self-policing community that sets its own standards, expectations, goals, and enforces that by themselves. I think that will happen naturally over time. Does it mean that we're going to potentially see more speech that we disagree with? Absolutely. But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. And then all connected to all that is, hopefully getting things like Twitter and YouTube to come up with tools so that, with alongside more speech comes with more hate speech and harassment speech, and hopefully there are tools in place to deal with that for the folks that have that directed at them. I think all that stuff is kind of connected, but I just think all this is so incredibly young. It's really exciting, but obviously it comes with some bumps in the road that I'm not going to say they're all going to get ironed out, but I think it'll become a little more clear what it all means and how we all kind of grapple with this new world as we spend more time in it. CW Payne 89 asks, if you could take over a director of any video game franchise and have 100% control, which franchise would you pick, and what's one thing you would change? Maybe it's just because I've been playing it recently and covering it a lot for Kotaku, but I would love... I don't want to make games, but if I'm taking this fantasy, if I'm riding this out and I'm going along with the question, I wish Resident Evil would go back to its roots. And I don't mean that it has to take place in a mansion or anything like that. I don't fundamentally have a problem with Resident Evil having gone down the action route that it has. I think there's a way that Resident Evil can still be scary and interesting while also giving the player more freedom to express themselves and to attack and blah blah blah. I mean, I'm not articulating that point super clear to the way that I'd like, but I guess sort of the veneer, sort of the feel of that original Resident Evil, just the way it's terrifying and oppressive and scary and weird. I wish you could capture more of that in a new Resident Evil. And I'm not sure exactly how you would do that, what's the best approach. I don't think it's necessarily putting it in a mansion. It's not tank controls. But there's something about the way I feel when I play the remake, for example, that I'd love to see if there's a way Capcom can do both. Is there a way that they can... they obviously want to appeal to a wide audience, but can they do that with the tone of the original Resident Evil, 1 and 2 specifically? And even 2, right? Like 2 is this much bigger, more bombastic, action-oriented, faster-paced take on Resident Evil, and yet it's still utterly fantastic. So maybe what I'm looking for is not Resident Evil 1, but Resident Evil 2 done in sort of a remake fashion. If they were to remake Resident Evil 2, no, I don't think they're going to do that. But yeah, I think I would love it if Resident Evil got scary again. If I could distill it down to sort of a one articulate point, it's that I wish Resident Evil would get scary again. And however it wants to accomplish that, I think can be done in a wide variety of ways. And I wish the series that scared me first would be the series that still scares me now. Next question comes after I take a sip of this coffee. Voidwire asks, I love seeing you just kind of wing it with your own video coverage. It looks like you're having a lot of fun, which is equally fun to watch. Can't wait to see more Demon Souls and whatever other content you experiment with. It has been tremendously fun and, to be honest, tremendously scary to start doing this stuff on my own. There was something comforting about the fact that no matter what I put on the front page of Giant Bomb, that people would tune in, people would watch. That no matter what I was doing, no matter what any of us were doing, that at least somewhere between 800 to 1,500 people would just start watching. It was on that front page. They saw that Giant Bomb was live, and they were game for anything. And that was awesome. I loved the fact that our community just embraced that, hey, we're going to try and do something interesting or entertaining. Maybe we don't know where this is going yet. Hopefully you'll come along for the ride, and that's great. But doing stuff on my own now, I don't have that. I don't have that front page guarantee, those eyeballs that, hey, something's live, I'm going to check in on that. And I have to start building part of that audience on my own, slowly but surely, brick by brick, viewer by viewer. I have to carve out my own audience. And, it's easy to look at how many Twitter followers I have. I'm sure if you weeded out the spam, it's probably like 20,000 less than what I'm actually at. I'm almost at 100,000, but I have to imagine a bunch of that is just cruff. But, it's a significant amount of people, but that doesn't translate to viewers. That doesn't translate to YouTube subscribers. That doesn't translate to Twitch viewers. And I have to build all that stuff from scratch. And that's what I've found so exciting is the ownership. I was able to graduate into something really incredible at Giant Bomb. I was able to be a part of something that was really magical. And I'll always appreciate that experience and what it gave me. And it's meant so much to my current career. And I owe a lot to it. But I was standing on the top of giants of folks that had done amazing things and brought this audience in, and then I got to take advantage of that. I got to reap the benefits of an audience that was already kind of there, and now I'm doing that on my own. And it's so satisfying to see when it works, right? Like small victories, right? Is like doing a video on Grow Home, like identifying a game that no one else seems to be covering, and I'm really enjoying, and I know people want to see more of it, but I'm just not seeing it at any goddamn website. And I record a video, and it's currently at 15,000 views, and I only have just under 7,000 subscribers on YouTube, and so that means like that video got around, like other people saw it, and that probably resulted. I can look through the comments and see there are a couple of people that clearly don't follow me on Twitter or know who I am from Kotaku or Giant Bomb. They just enjoyed that video I made on YouTube and said, "Hey, I'm subscribing. I'm curious to watch more of what you're doing." That's really exciting because I built that. That's all on me, and there's something really exciting about slowly kind of crafting that out on my own. And I'm just curious to see where it goes. And it's definitely revitalized me. It's gotten me energized in a way I haven't felt about this stuff in a long, long time. Hey Patrick, anonymous asks, ever since you left Giant Bomb, there's been a bomb in the AM-sized hole in my playlist. Single tear. That I hold you personally responsible for. Another tear. To rectify this, what are some good gaming podcasts that you can recommend? Idle Thumbs is absolutely my favorite video game-centric podcast. Go back through and look for Brainy Gamer. There are not any more episodes of that, or none have been produced in a while. But Brainy Gamer is still as an exceptional archive. 8-4 Play, obviously I'm biased because I'm friends with all those people, but they talk about Japanese video games, and they talk about Japanese culture. So it always provides me a little bit of an insight into something I don't know anything about because I don't live there and I don't experience Japanese culture. So I recommend 8-4, and I think that's all the game podcasts that I listen to. Yeah, that's it. I don't really listen to a lot of video game podcasts. I try to make my podcasting as with my reading, to be outside the sphere of what I normally listen to, so that hopefully I'm getting a better sense of the outside world as a result. Anonymous asks, random Jurassic Park question. Have you ever read the first draft of the Jurassic Park script penned by Michael Crichton? I'm reading it now. It's kind of surreal, a weird mix of the novel and the eventual film. Also, what are your hopes, expectations for Jurassic World? I'm holding out hope for some sort of meta treatment, like the park was designed to give an amusement park gone wrong experience, a la original Jurassic Park, but then things actually go wrong. I've not read that original treatment. That sounds like that'd be a lot of fun. I'm definitely, whether Jurassic Park World is good or not is an interesting question. We'll get to that in a second. But what I like about the build-up to Jurassic World's release is that there's just going to be Jurassic Park stuff everywhere. I'm finally getting a Jurassic Park Lego game. Obviously, I wish I would get like a actual good Trespasser Jurassic Park video game, like a survival sim type thing, or single-player scripted experience of being alone on an island with dinosaurs. I think that would be the shit. But just the fact that there's going to be so much archival Jurassic Park nostalgia in the next 6 months as we lead up to the release of Jurassic World. Again, whether that movie's good or not, obviously I hope it's great. That'd be awesome. I'd love for them to be looking forward to Jurassic Park films for years to come. Not that they won't inevitably reboot it again in 10 years, even if this movie flops. But I'm excited to just revel in the Jurassic Parkness all over again. As for Jurassic World, I have not been super impressed by the trailers. I am now officially done watching Jurassic World trailers. I watched the original teaser. I watched the Super Bowl spot. But the only thing that I'm going to see that movie. I don't need to be convinced about whether I need to see Jurassic World. I'd rather go in with slightly lower expectations, with some optimism, just because I want to be a serial optimist about the Jurassic Park series, and I want it to be good instead of bad, like Jurassic Park 3. I think The Lost World is more of a mix. And there's nothing I'm doing when I'm watching the trailers or looking at new images that is going to change the fundamental fact that I'm going to go see that film at midnight. And I want to go in, honestly, without knowing very much. I don't want the trailers to shape, what my expectations are. I want to go in there just as a fan to see what a new story is being told by a young, exciting director whose stuff I have enjoyed in the past, and he's now doing a take on Jurassic Park, and that's all I want going into it. And if the movie's great, awesome. If the movie's terrible, I still have Jurassic Park. And so that's sort of my take on it. It's going to be really tough to not watch what I'm sure is at least one more major trailer, but I know the general premise. What else? I don't need to see more unfinished CG. I just don't need to see it. It's not going to do anything for me. So I'm now officially not on blackout because stuff happens and I'll occasionally run into things, but generally speaking, I am attempting to avoid anything more on Jurassic World. Anonymous asks, or states rather, I signed Jeff Grossman up for a subscription of Sonic Boom comics. I had to tell someone who could kinda do or see something about it. Shh, don't tell anyone. I approve. Feder Dave asks, do you think any journalist will be able to get someone at EA to comment on how they feel about marketing Battlefield Hardline given the increased awareness of police militarization over the last year or so? I'm a little surprised it didn't radically shift the tone of the game somehow in response to the events in Ferguson, Cleveland, etc. Obviously, I think there has been a few journalists who have asked Visceral about that. I think there were some questions from Gamescom, but they really haven't done a whole lot of press sort of forward-facing press stuff since a lot of these events have occurred in society. I'm not exposed to preview and review events anymore. That's totally outside of my circle of stuff that I have to care about for my job or personally. So I suppose in that case, it's sort of on those writers for not asking those questions, because I think it is absolutely pertinent that we look at a game like Battlefield Hardline that fetishizes and glamorizes this idea of police and police engagement in a way that should weird us out. I mean, have you heard some of the soundtracks selections for Battlefield Hardline? There are musical choices in Battlefield Hardline that are specifically like fuck the police type songs, which are African Americans speaking out about police oppression, that is then used as sort of goofy musical ambiance in a game that is ultimately about fetishization of like the militarization of police. Like, that seems so tone deaf and weird and like the whitest thing you could do, honestly. And just it bothers me on a lot of levels. I'm curious to see how the actual game plays out, what the story is. Obviously, the marketing kind of like plays up certain aspects of this that maybe don't come across in the nuance of the game. I'm trying to give the game a little bit more credit than maybe it's due, but I guess we'll see when we get closer to the game's release. My guess is that game is going to inspire all sorts of thoughtful pieces based on the kind of message it says, especially in where it fits in sort of video game culture. Bass Guy says, is your shoulder 100% back to normal these days, or do you end with permanent mobility issues because of the bike incident? Do you still have a metal plate or whatever? If so, is that a huge hassle at airports? So I hit a little bit of mobility issues when I like do this. I can still generally reach every spot that I want to reach. But if I like do this, if I kind of bend like the extremities, I can kind of feel a tightness that I don't feel in my other arm. But other than that, it really doesn't bother me. Sometimes it causes some sleeping issues if it gets caught at a weird angle in which it kind of expresses one of those extremities, then it can be kind of a pain. The fact that I even feel those is mostly a result that I don't do like the most extreme end of the exercises anymore, but I don't do those exercises because it just doesn't impact my day-to-day. I can carry things. I don't have to worry about anything. Honestly, even that stuff goes away when I swim. Swimming, like, because you just use so many upper body muscles in order to properly use swim technique that it's amazing when I get out and I realize, like, oh yeah, that's what it would feel like if I always did these exercises. I do still have like a metal, not a plate, but like there's a metal bar here that was used to help reconstruct my collarbone. It's basically the metal bar went in there with screws to allow the bones to heal in the right order. Otherwise, the bones will heal, but they might like go like. I can get that removed. It's not a permanent addition to my body, but in order to get it removed, you have to have invasive surgery in which you go under and blah 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 blah. And my doctor basically said if you have some fundamental disagreement with there being a piece of metal in your body permanently, we can absolutely have it taken out. I don't recommend that you do that because there are always risks associated with surgery. Not major risks, but there's always a risk that when you go under, you might not come back up, or there's an infection in the surgery. Like, it's just why get that out if it's not bothering you? Over time, it can rub away at some of the thinner muscles in my shoulder, so it could cause sleep issues like in my late 30s and 40s. So it might be an opportunity where I want to get it removed if it's actually causing me discomfort when I'm trying to sleep. But right now it doesn't really bother me, and no, it does not cause metal detectors to go off. Whatever they put in my body now doesn't allow that stuff to happen. I think I'm gonna have to call it there. This is a little bit of a shorter video, but I wanted to make sure I got it in for my birthday before I'm off to do stuff. But I got other things to do. Thanks everyone for tuning in. That has been 3 Beers Deep. I wish I could say right now I could point you to an iTunes podcast, but I can't. But I'm going to get that together and hopefully have that ready to go by the end of day on Monday. I'll make sure and link that in the notes below as soon as that's live, and keep bugging me about it so that I actually do it. But that is going to do it for 3 Beers Deep. Submit new questions to patricklubbock.tumblr.com or email me if you have something lengthier to ask. Thanks for tuning in. There'll be more stuff happening on this channel throughout the week. We're going to try and get our first Spookin' with Scoops live stream going real soon. And we'll be playing Demon Souls several times a week. I don't know if I'm going to stick to a regular schedule or just kind of fit it in where it makes sense, but we will be getting through that game in the ramp up to the release of Bloodborne. And that's it. See you guys later.